In this video, we'll be ranking the episodes in Ace Attorney Investigations Miles Edgeworth, the first spin-off made for the Ace Attorney series, released for the DS in 2009 in Japan, before being released worldwide a year later. This game was different from the main series in that you play as prosecutor Miles Edgeworth, and the goal of the game is to investigate crime scenes in order to corner the true culprit. This time around, the investigations you take part in are more interactive, in that you're physically moving the character across the area, examining clues, talking to related persons, and at various points connecting pieces of logic together to find new information. In between investigations, you'll also have to question the witnesses, just like how Phoenix would conduct cross-examinations in the main series. With the introductions out of the way, time to rank the 5 episodes. There will be spoilers, so make sure you played every episode in the game before you watch. Number 5, The Kidnap Turnabout. This is a popular choice for least favorite episodes in the series, and it's not hard to see why. This episode is an immediate follow-up to the previous episode. Lance Amano, the 21-year-old son of the rich tycoon Ernest Amano, has been kidnapped for ransom. Edgeworth stops by Gatewater Land to drop off the ransom money, but is suddenly attacked and held hostage himself. With the assistance of Kay Faraday, a 17-year-old self-proclaimed great thief, he escapes his predicament, and while searching for clues to the kidnapper's identity, they discover the body of the Amano family butler, Oliver Deacon. Okay, couldn't it have just stayed as a kidnapping case? Why would we need to throw a murder in there as well? In a way, it's kind of like the stolen turnabout, which started off seeming like just a case of grand larceny before a murder is thrown into the mix. But in that episode, they waited until after you thought you beat the episode after securing a not guilty verdict for the theft. But in this episode, you find a corpse not long after you escape from your prison. That's kind of fast, isn't it? All in the first chapter? But hey, if pacing issues aren't your thing, there's actually a bit more than just the pacing. Once you find out who the villain is, there's things about him that just don't make sense. He planned his own kidnapping because he needed his father's money to pay off his loan? His father's rich as crap. Just ask him to help you with that. There's also a few logical errors, like how Lance locked himself in the room by using the prop sword to jam the door handle. Then when the officers broke the door down, shouldn't that mean the entire door gets busted, not just the handle? The door looks like it opens on the outside, not inside. Admittedly though, it's also a neat way to introduce us to Shilong Lang, an Interpol agent who bears a grudge against the judicial system, and is also very arrogant because of his high arrest rate. We also have cool elements introduced, such as Little Thief, a device that Kay has which you can use to recreate the crime scene in order to glean the information you need. But anyway, while this episode is an important one for the plot of the whole game, it's still kind of a dumb one when you compare it to the rest of the episodes. Number 4, Turnabout Visitor. Even though this is the tutorial episode, chronologically it's the 4th story in the game. It takes place after the kidnapping and murder at Gatewater Land has been resolved, and Edgeworth returns to his office only to be greeted by a dead body and a gun pointed at his back by a thief. Naturally, with this being the tutorial, this is where Ace Attorney Investigations begins. You and Detective Gumshoe investigate the office and eventually the hallway in order to gather information to solve the murder in the office, and also learn what the killer was after. Gather some logic, piece the leads together, and you'll prove once and for all what you just witnessed when the game began. Turnabout Visitor works well enough as a tutorial, and even though it's significant to the game's finale, it's hard to really say it feels like such. Yes, you do learn more about the great thief Yatagarasu and the culprit's connection to the smuggling ring that you've been chasing throughout the game, but it's ridiculous how much time you gotta spend investigating and making arguments just to prove the culprit's guilt. It's especially true when you got yet another repeat suspect. Maggie Bird makes another appearance, becoming a suspect in a murder yet again. This is the 3rd game she appears in too. That's how bad her luck is, she can't go one game without a murder accusation. For what it's worth though, despite its place in the timeline, it's a good place to start the game. Number 3, Turnabout Ablaze. The game's finale is essentially the culmination of everything you've experienced thus far. News of the fake Yatagarasu's appearance in the Cadopian embassy in the United States has reached Edgeworth, prompting him to accompany Kay to catch the phony. Basically, the Principality of Cadopia was recently split into 2 separate nations, the Kingdom of Alabast and the Republic of Babel. As a result of their past unity, both countries share the same building, though they also house their own embassies, in which case both countries' embassies have had a murder take place, and Babel has also experienced a fire in the Secretary's office, where the Secretary, who just so happened to be the suspect from the KG-8 incident, was found dead. The victim in Alabast was apparently a copycat Master Mask who was hired to steal the Prima Duck statue, a national treasure which both countries claim to hold the genuine article, meaning one of them is fake. As you can already tell from that description, it's an extremely political episode, but it had a lot going for it with the setting and the situation in which the characters find themselves. The first 2/3 of the case actually lent us some clever twists and answered some questions that were left hanging over our heads. But then after you accuse the true culprit in the case, the true final battle isn't so much trying to get him to admit defeat, although that too is a challenge. It's pretty much a test of endurance. Once you're done investigating the Theatra Neutralis, the last 2 chapters are all dedicated to making your arguments against the villain, and him making rebuttals that force you to change up your strategy. Why they had to split into 2 chapters when it would have sufficed to condense most of this crap? The last confrontation is just so poorly paced. The only reason I don't have such a strong dislike towards this finale is because of how well done everything before the last confrontation was. By the time you're done, you'll be happy to have gotten it over with, because then it means moving on to the far superior sequel to this game. Not a bad finale, just a pretty underwhelming one compared to a few others. Number 2, Turnabout Airlines. Upon replaying this episode recently, I have a much deeper appreciation for it now than I used to. It takes place 2 days before the murder at the prosecutor's office. Edgeworth's aboard a plane making his return flight back to the US, but during the trip, a dead body is found in the elevator and he quickly becomes the prime suspect. But by investigating the aircraft, he is able to prove his own innocence and deduce that the true culprit must be a crew member. But there's also the matter of Franziska von Karma's return to the US, which is apparently due to Interpol's investigation into an international smuggling ring. I think the reason I enjoy this episode so much more now is because of all the plot details it introduces that will become important for the rest of the game. One of the most prevalent is, as mentioned already, the smuggling ring that Interpol is looking into. Admittedly as well, it's also a neat way to give us more info about the fictional country Borginia, more than just the fact that it's a country in Northern Europe. We hear about a national artifact that was unveiled in a museum, and a fake was apparently smuggled on this flight while it stopped at a transfer point in an Asian country called the Republic of Zhangfa. It's also very clever when it comes to proving the guilt of the true culprit and how the crime was carried out. Overall, yeah, this was a fun case. Number 1, Turnabout Reminiscence. This episode takes us 7 years into the past, when 20-year-old Edgeworth was set to make his prosecutorial debut. Hang on, wasn't his first trial the case against Terry Falls in Turnabout Beginnings, which happened after the events of Turnabout Reminiscence? Well, here's the explanation. After the defendant in a murder trial not only confesses to the murder, but also accuses the prosecutor of ordering the killing, Edgeworth was meant to take his place. But before the trial can resume, the news is broken that both the defendant and the initial prosecutor are dead, seemingly having murdered each other with different weapons. But it turns out a third person was behind the killings, and the goal soon becomes proving the innocence of then rookie detective Dick Gumshoe on top of finding the true culprit. As per tradition with Ace Attorney, the episode throws us some strange and fascinating twists. In this case, the trial you were meant to prosecute was being referred to as the second KG-8 incident due to having similarities to the original. One of the most striking is that the murder victim was actually set to testify against the smuggling ring, but was killed before they had the chance to do so. A major difference, however, is that the more recent case had evidence sent to the police by the great thief Yatagarasu. But unfortunately, by the end of the episode, you end up handing that evidence to the true culprit, who claims herself to be the Yatagarasu and pulls a gun on you while making her escape. It's one of the very few episodes, alongside Turnabout Beginnings, where the culprit actually manages to get away with their crime, only to eventually be caught later along the timeline. This episode had me the most intrigued out of all of them in the first Investigations game, and it was enough intrigue that it is among my top 10 episodes of the whole series. The twists, the connections, the look into Edgeworth's inner thoughts during his time as a rookie prosecutor, just about everything worked well in this episode. That's all for this video. How would you rank the episodes? Post your rankings in the comments below, and be sure to subscribe for more. See you next time.